Previously, Gao Fei and Luo Xiao spar intensely while Zhu Tianchen plans against looming threats, and tensions escalate between groups over scarce supplies. Zhu Tianchen and Gao Fei then prepare to leave, exchanging supplies before encountering Su Zhao and battling infected creatures. Survival doesn't offer a reset button, but for someone who lived through the end of the world once, it just feels like revisiting a bad memory. Zhu Tianchen doesn't just watch the apocalypse unfold. He edits the script while the rest of the world screams. The stench of death thickens as the group sprints down a narrow alleyway, boots drumming against the pavement until they hit a dead end. Faced with a tide of monsters, Shang Baio draws his gun, the cold metal offering the only comfort in a world gone to hell. Voices rise in panic, and an argument breaks out over who caused this trap, but the noise just draws more heat. While they bicker, Luo Xiao Zhu swings a heavy iron pipe with everything she has, trying to push back the encroaching shadows of the dead. Disaster strikes as an infected lunges from the dark, tearing the weapon right out of her hands and leaving her defenseless. She lets out a gut-wrenching scream, her eyes widening in realization that this is exactly where her story might end. A single, clean gunshot echoes through the claustrophobic space, and her attacker drops instantly into a heap of gore. She stands there, trembling and stunned, staring at the sudden savior who just snatched her back from the ledge. Stepping from the fray, Gao Fei, accompanied by Gao Zhai and Su Xuan, sizes up the frightened group they just rescued. He handles this like a pro. It is almost funny how these kids act like they've never seen a monster before. Steel and gunpowder mix as the trio dives into the swarm, their movements lethal compared to the panicked students. Su Xuan howls at the rotting mass, letting loose a string of curses that seem to make the bullets fly just a little bit faster. The clicking of an empty magazine forces a change, so the leader ditches his firearm to unsheath a razor-sharp blade. With the range gone, it turns into a messy, intimate dance where every swing of the sword needs to count. Blades find bone and gunfire punches through skulls as the fighters clear the path, turning the alleyway into a slaughterhouse. They operate with terrifying efficiency, moving like a well-oiled machine while the others struggle to keep pace. Once the silence returns, a blood-spattered crowbar is handed back, creating an awkward moment. She turns away, unable to look at the tool that failed her and maybe afraid of what else she might see. The survivors toy with the idea of sticking together, but the suggestion is shot down before it can even root. The man gets teased about his connection to the girl, his face burning with the kind of embarrassment reserved for the high school halls they left behind. Everything shifts the second an expert eye scans for hidden injuries, questioning if their new tag-along was bitten. The defensiveness in that man's eyes tells a story he thinks he is clever enough to hide. He forces a confrontation, peeling back layers of denial to reveal a festering, dark wound on the leg. It is the signature of the Ebola virus, a cruel trick that kills the nerves so the victim doesn't feel the rot eating them alive. The air turns icy as the reality is laid out. Take the last bullet and end it now, or wait to turn into a mindless beast. Fear replaces shock on the dying man's face, and he points his own gun at his savior, terrified of the truth. Before the argument can explode into a tragedy, a piercing, inhuman scream tears through the distant, quiet streets. The group freezes as the girl whispers a terrified warning that something much worse is hunting them right now. There is no mistaking that sound. The realization hits them that Su Zhao is being hunted by something they aren't ready to fight. The grim set of his jaw confirms the danger is only just beginning, and he knows exactly what comes next. And just as the silence shatters, Zhu Tianchen prepares to meet the beast Itwai. A massive, reeking monstrosity tears through the silence with a roar so loud it ripples the very air in the street. Zhu Tianchen doesn't flinch. Instead, he calmly orders his companions to pull back and run, already drawing a breath to face the nightmare head-on in their place. Before the beast can finish its next breath, a shadow flashes forward and drives a foot straight into the creature's ugly mug with bone-snapping force. The roar vanishes instantly, cut off like a lamp switch, as our guy stands there having made the silence deafening. The monster hits the dirt, twitching and stunned, while Su Zhao identifies the threat as an evolved second-stage beast that usually calls for backup. Our protagonist just smirks at the warning, knowing full well he cleared out every single living thing in the vicinity months ago as far as his memories go. Zhu Tianchen flicks a cigarette to life, watching the thin smoke curl as he tells his pupils this is their final test. Su Zhao grips a pair of blades with hungry eyes, while Su Xuan prepares a sharp knife, finally standing their ground against a creature that would have been their death sentence yesterday. Both fighters launch themselves skyward in a desperate, synchronized arc from either side of the road. Their blades catch the light as they descend to turn this monster's arrogance into a permanent lesson, moving with the kind of precision they never had before. The view cuts to a car tearing down the road where Li Yun frantically grips the steering wheel to keep them moving through the hellscape. Luo Zio Yu rides shotgun, her heart pounding as she spots her friends in the distance and screams for the driver to slam on the brakes. Li Yun tries to talk the girl down from her panic, though the story of kids defeating entire hordes of zombies sounds like a fevered dream. The desperate passenger just keeps pleading, terrified that even these warriors are completely outmatched by the monster they've just stumbled onto. The horizon opens up to reveal a series of industrial warehouses, their rusted frames standing like gravestones in the waning light of a dead city. It is a lonely, massive structure where secrets go to be buried under layers of dust and silence. Li Yun moves her squad through the shadows of the facility, hands tight on their weapons as they creep through the gloom. They push forward in a tight formation, treating every dark corner as a potential grave while the girl from the car follows behind, clutching her breath. The whole team grinds to a halt at a sharp corner, staring into the abyss of the building ahead. The leader locks her gaze on the empty space and begins a slow, rhythmic countdown, preparing everyone to breach and clear whatever horror is hiding in the dark. Back at the road, the monster lies finished in a pool of its own black blood, nothing more than a ruined pile of muscle. Zhu Tianchen calmly taps ash from his cigarette as if he's just finished a light workout, while his companion pops a lollipop into her mouth, looking completely bored by the slaughter. Still, the smoke hasn't even cleared before the real headache of managing this crew begins. Su Ryuxuan looks purely baffled, but Zhu Tianchen just sighs. He's seen this sloppy combat too many times before. He scolds Gao Fei for charging like a headless chicken, while Luo Zio Zhu giggles like she's at a park. They would be dead if not for him, honestly. Li Yun jumps in to play peacekeeper, claiming their reckless charge was just a misguided attempt at bonding. The newcomer just stares at the carnage left behind in total shock. She has no clue how this tiny band of misfits just mowed down a massive horde. She narrows her eyes, demanding to know why the returner is staring so intensely. He recognizes her instantly as a legendary assassin from the life he already lived. He keeps a stone-cold face, hiding his secret like a pro. The lady starts poking fun at his brooding silence before her friend tries to recruit him. Things get petty fast when someone gets called a kid, sparking a heated shouting match over height that belongs on a playground. The talk shifts to their mysterious leader, Lin Sheng. Our guy realizes this is the very man who commands the assassin. With talk of a serial killer on the loose, he sees a golden ticket to influence the biggest players in town. Intrigued by the leader's reputation, the veteran decides to play ball and joins their group. The assassin watches him with visible confusion, having pegged him for a lone wolf who never joins parties. Down the road, a car screams across the asphalt with 3 men sweating bullets inside. They cleared out a factory and walked away with nothing. Their boss is going to be absolutely thrilled about that, clearly. The driver pressures his passenger to find loot before they head back into the frying pan of the boss's wrath. The guy just grabs a shotgun from the floor, stepping into the street like he owns the place. Someone's feeling brave. He stalks into a ransacked store with his weapon raised, acting like he's the sheriff of this apocalypse. He barks for the survivors to start hauling his gear. Poor guy has no idea he's currently the biggest target in the room. The raider continues to bluster, clearly enjoying the sight of terrified people begging for mercy. His mood suddenly pivots to a hungry, nasty grin when he notices the mother of his previous combatant standing there. Time to quit while he's ahead. But before that pig can even draw his next breath, Zhu Tianchen shifts the atmosphere entirely. The night air is thick with the smell of a steaming hot pot meal, a luxury that seems almost impossible in a world reclaimed by shadows. Our guy toasts to the evening with his group, his movements relaxed and entirely too calm for someone sitting in a den of unknown variables. Leader Lin, a man who knows how to spot raw talent when he sees it, can't stop talking about how the group ripped through those monsters like they were made of wet tissue paper. He drops a bombshell invite, offering the protagonist the keys to his heaviest hitters, essentially handing over his own sword on a silver platter. A disgruntled veteran, Fatty Wei, decides now is the perfect time to let his insecurities scream for everyone to hear, demanding to know why a fresh stranger gets the promotion. Before the guy can even finish his tantrum, a short girl with pink hair snaps a baseball bat into her hands, ready to turn his ego into a softball. Our protagonist sighs at the display of teenage angst, telling the girl that getting all worked up will just give her early wrinkles, because why fight with steel when a sharp tongue works just as well? While the volatile situation cools, a veteran in a purple shirt makes a tactical exit, clearly realizing his vibe is just not part of the plan anymore. With the tension cut, the man in charge apologizes for his team's lack of manners, But it doesn't matter because this isn't a recruitment drive anymore. Our guy leans in to pitch a cold, hard business transaction, moving past the base politics to focus on the only resource that matters right now. Away from the noise, he lays out his grocery list for the end of the world, specifically asking for heavy hitters and a high-caliber sniper rifle to keep the distance. He doesn't need to ask twice for the big guns. He just needs someone with enough clout to authorize the shipment. He knows that ammo is just metal without the right motivation, so he finally drops his ace in the hole, a hidden stash of life-saving medicine. A brown-haired girl who is watching from the sidelines suddenly finds her curiosity piqued, her eyes widening as she realizes he's brought something more valuable than gold. Everyone is suddenly a medical expert, listing off the essential supplies like they're reciting a holy scripture of survival. Leader Lin stares at the list with a calculating hunger, already weighing the cost of the deal against the absolute necessity of keeping his people alive through the winter. Far from the warm light of the meeting, the disgruntled veteran and his friend are busy having a pity party about seniority and the unfairness of life. They are nursing their wounded pride in the dark, convinced they are the backbone of the base while everyone else is just an ungrateful guest. The complaining stops the second a pair of boots enters their corner, signaling that the boss of this new power dynamic has arrived. Their voices die in their throats, replaced by a sudden, frantic realization that they might have picked the wrong people to antagonize. With the intimidation settled, Li Yun steps up to steer this wreckage toward salvation. Li Yun jumps in to take charge, promising the group he's got things under control. It really is a massive shift from the quiet, happy days he spent carrying Luo Lancia on his back. They step into a room packed with history, where she gazes at a porcelain vase like it belongs in a museum, not this rotting world. The man watching her acts like a tour guide, insisting these dusty trinkets matter more than survival. Fatty Wei is losing his mind outside, fuming that some guests snagged the comfy room while he rots in a tent. Running down the hall like a bull in a red-tinted rage, he's clearly looking for a world of hurt. Our guide stands his ground at the door, playing human shield while Zhu Tianchen stays ice-cold, completely bored by the shouting match. Third brother watches from the shadows, finding the petty chaos way better than the apocalypse. The agitated bully tries to take command, loudly announcing himself as Ali before thrusting a hand out for the world's most awkward handshake. That gesture is a threat dressed up in ego, though the reborn survivor doesn't even feel the shift in pressure. With the ego of a guy who never hears the word no, the challenger locks his fingers around the other man's hand. He's clearly convinced he can crush stone, a classic caveman move that's just painful to watch. Silence fills the room as that grip fails to move the human wall in front of him. The woman he's protecting leans in to see her partner effortlessly embarrass this amateur, making it look like he's trying to snap a steel pillar. Sweat dabs the attacker's forehead once he figures out he has met his match, while his victim offers a dry, biting roast about his pathetic training routine. He definitely brought a plastic fork to a knife fight. Before the poor guy can even process the shame, a strike lands in a flash, turning his posturing into a high-pitched scream. He's gone from hallway king to floor scrubber in one breath, a massive tactical error. The defeated bully limps off to nurse his crushed arm and his ego, while the guardian turns to scold the observer for watching the train wreck. It's a harsh lesson, but at least the base now knows exactly who to avoid. But shadows rarely stay peaceful for long, especially when Wei Dong is looking for a new target. Wei Dong corners Luo Zhu with an aggressive sparring move, smugly critiquing her speed as if she were a raw rookie. Zhu Tianchen watches from the shadows, barely keeping a straight face. Meanwhile, Duan Churu spreads word of the leader's interest in gifted fighters to the growing crowd. The reborn survivor just stands by, letting others inflate his reputation for him. Trainees start begging for a new instructor, which sends the hot-headed trainer into a tailspin. He screams at his students, then turns his fury on the newcomer, claiming the grounds are off-limits. An anonymous voice from the back ranks calls out the instructor's pathetic combat record. As our guy tries to leave, the insecure man blocks their path, demanding his own brand of advice. He doesn't mince words, painting a clear picture of why that ego will get him killed. The trainer has a total meltdown, whining about how unfair it is that his effort goes unrewarded. Desperate to win back some respect, he strips off his shirt and challenges the veteran to a duel. He bets the whole training facility, clearly mistaking his own temper for actual power. The returner just laughs, calling the man a walking corpse. Before a single punch can land, the blonde bodyguard steps in, catching that wild fist like he's snatching a fly. The bodyguard stares him down, holding his arm until the guy begins to sweat. It's a classic case of forgetting that you have to clear the floor before bothering the boss. A blur of motion ends it, with the protector delivering a swift kick to the man's head. It sends him flying across the room as easily as taking out the trash. He craters into the dirt, nursing wounds to his body and his pride. With the fight over, the group turns their backs on the wreckage and prepares to walk away. Humiliated, the sore loser sprints to report to leader Lin. He demands the outsiders be booted, but gets back a stern reminder not to get in the way of rising talent. Trying to play a trump card, he brings up Ali and hints at dark consequences. The leader just sighs and waves him off, totally over the pettiness of his staff. The bitter trainer stomps off, burning rubber as he peels away from the main gate. The gate guard gets an earful of his rage, but he's just shouting at the rain. A close-up captures the exact moment he swears a pathetic, doomed revenge. He has no clue that his current path is basically a fast track to his own destruction. But destiny has a funny way of making a liar out of the overly confident. Zhuo Tianchen sits on the balcony with leader Lin, lazily swatting away a recruitment pitch. It is a management job, but our guy treats the offer like a lukewarm plate of leftovers. Classic corporate overreach. The recruiter warns that staying in Jai County is a one-way ticket to starvation. While the host drones on, the reborn strategist is already mentally mapping out a treasure trove in Huabei City. Lin grows desperate, painting a vivid picture of secret military stockpiles nearby. He is practically begging for a heist, unaware that his guest has already mentally looted the place twice over. It is a full-blown sales performance now, with the host pleading for loyalty. The returner keeps his smile tight, dodging the commitment while keeping the bridge to future favors nice and sturdy. When the talk shifts to gear, the host complains that good rifles are essentially extinct. The protagonist pivots, casually offering to clear out a hydropower station instead, which immediately grabs the attention of Gao Fei. Fei confirms their target with a sharp nod, leaving Luo Xiao Zhu clearly surprised by the sudden shift in plans. Meanwhile, the host stays in the shadows to explain why the local warlord is such a headache. In the dark, our trio agrees that their enemy is a brilliant maniac. When the recruiter hits them with an assassination request, his two companions are surprisingly eager for the bloodshed. Just as the mission plan comes together, the leader slams the brakes and scraps the deal entirely. The recruiter turns ghost-white, clearly not used to being told no by the help. He makes it clear that he will not turn his friends into fodder just for a few guns. With that, he stands up and walks away, leaving the man behind him completely rattled. The exit remains professional, with the host promising to keep a light on for them in the future. He takes the offer with a polite nod and vanishes into the night. Beyond the city walls, a commander with a bright red mohawk is busy getting his squad equipped for war. They are loading rifles with no idea that their demise is already walking toward them. But before those rifles can fire, the night ignites with the fire of his cold vengeance. Explosions rip through the night, turning the base into a meat grinder while boots stomp the earth like thunder. Someone with a strategic mind shouts for a full retreat, his voice nearly buried by the roar of the assault. A commanding officer in charge of the raiding party doesn't care about the mounting casualties, insisting that victory is inevitable despite his subordinates' clear skepticism. He demands a relentless charge, treating his own men like expendable coins in a slot machine that's rigged to lose. A scarred lieutenant rushes to the commander to beg for new orders, hoping to salvage the failing mission before the slaughter gets worse. The commander offers him a hollow promise of future power, though his hand, tightening around the lieutenant's collar, says the only thing waiting for him is a painful death. When excuses fail to satisfy, the boss kicks the lieutenant flat on his back, proving that corporate toxicity really does survive the apocalypse. He barks orders for a final push, demanding control of the food and equipment that he's clearly too incompetent to actually secure on his own. With the base dying around them, the commander shares a smoke with a subordinate and drops a secret, cold-blooded order to handle a rival once they breach the gates. It's the kind of backstabbing that usually involves a boardroom, but here it just means another grave in the mud. Inside the fortified position, Li Yun transforms into a one-man wrecking crew, his machine gun singing a rhythm of pure, unbridled destruction. The way he tears through the incoming wave makes the watching scouts realize they picked the wrong room to raid. The invaders scramble for cover, screaming for their sniper to clean up the mess and put a bullet in the man holding the line. A rifle barrel pokes out from the shadows, steady and waiting, aiming to end the resistance with a single, soundless twitch of a finger. The moment the shot rings out, Gao Fei tackles Li Yun with the speed of a man who knows exactly where death is hiding. They hit the floor together, leaving behind only the ghost of a bullet that would have changed everything. With the prime target having narrowly escaped, the shooter shifts his aim, his eyes locked onto the defender with a desperate, shaky intensity. It's a high-stakes standoff where one wrong blink means the difference between a pulse and a funeral. A teammate concerned about medical status checks for injuries, her voice cutting through the ringing of the gunfire while the defender stares down the darkness with grim defiance. They have survived the first wave, but the adrenaline is the only thing keeping them standing now. The survivors huddle together in the wreckage, realizing this isn't just a skirmish anymore, it's a fight for survival that they have to endure for the sake of the leader they serve. Li Yun plants his feet, ready to turn this position into an early grave for anyone foolish enough to walk through the door. But before Li Yun can even draw a breath, the entire structure erupts into pure chaos. The fort detonates under a relentless zombie swarm. Li Yun lights a smoke, his eyes focused on the carnage while everyone else loses their minds. Standard Tuesday for him. He remains locked into a cold analysis behind his scope as his team begs for outside support. The seasoned lead silences them, forcing the squad to fix this mess themselves. Protected inside a heavy truck, our guy orchestrates the battle like a grandmaster moving pawns. He orders his men to pressure the invaders, sending a subordinate racing into action. The plan is to drag every hostile eye toward the north gate, keeping the south gate clear for the real strike. Silhouettes melt into shadows as the trap snaps shut. The north gate ignites in gunfire as Gao Fei crashes into the fray. The massive bruiser starts trash-talking the enemies, daring them to survive his iron-tough endurance. Reinforcements hit the south side just as the battlefield shifts for the opposition. The hulking fighter gestures, letting them know the boss has the other flank pinned. Duan Churu dances through the incoming fire with impossible timing. She turns her agile dash into a lethal strike, leaving the attackers regretting their life choices. The lead strategist watches with disgusted eyes as the enemy uses wounded soldiers as human shields. He isn't letting that pathetic move go unpunished. Amidst the fleeing mob, he spots a face he has been hunting since the big betrayal. Wei Dong is scrambling away, but he is running out of road. The pursuer accelerates until space seems to warp around her. She closes the gap in a streak of light, turning the traitor's flight into a very short race. She catches the coward midair, flipping over him to seal his fate. The terrified man looks up, realizing his final pleas for mercy land on deaf ears. But Luo Zhu isn't finished settling scores, and her next target is already begging for mercy. Luo Zhu towers over a bound captive, her eyes flashing with pure annoyance. Fatty Wei cringes against the cold lamp post, still babbling demands like he is somehow in control of this mess. He cries about how little his loyalty was valued, treating his blatant betrayal like a bad business gamble. Their leader barely spares him a glance, already calculating how much more work to squeeze out of this clown. With one swift yank, the ropes go slack and the prisoner hits the pavement with a thud. Nobody waits for him to stand, just dragging him along like a bag of wet laundry. High on a nearby roof, a spy watches the group with growing dread. He realizes far too late that he is stalking killers, not victims, just as Gao Fei catches his movement and fires a warning shot. The bullet tears through the air, sending the spy scrambling for cover as his heart hits his throat. The team ignores him entirely, deciding a terrified rat isn't even worth the effort of a second bullet. The city gate looms under a heavy blanket of clouds, standing guard over a history of violence that is about to repeat itself. It looks sturdy enough from afar, but the shadows on the stone wall hide a coming collapse. Leader Lin stands before Lin Sheng with the practiced charm of a man who thinks he is still in charge. He proposes a partnership, but his opponent doesn't blink, knowing exactly what kind of snake he is dealing with. As the talk drags on, Zhu Tianchen casually pulls the rug out from under the villain. He reveals that those loyal guards at the gate were finished off hours ago, leaving the man with no cards to play. Lin Sheng pales as the news sinks in, his composure shattering like thin ice. The weary commander signals his teammate to step into the light, bringing the final piece of this nightmare into view. He drags the broken traitor up by the hair, forcing his enemy to face the mangled proof of a failed plan. The prisoner shrieks for mercy, but the silence from his captor says everything that needs to be said. But before Zhu Tiancheng can dish out his justice, the fallout begins on the other side. Fatty Wei grovels in the dirt, begging for his life as the leader demands why he leaked their security plans. Zhu Tiancheng and Luo Zhu watch from the sidelines, knowing exactly how this ends. Brutal, even for a Tuesday. The girl winces, her eyes wide as the heavy, suffocating weight of betrayal hangs in the air. She's finally seeing the kind of people they are dealing with today. Lin Sheng draws his pistol and executes the turncoat without a single flicker of hesitation. He calls the gunshot annoying, treating a human life like a noisy fly. Guy's lost his marbles. The group regroups to dissect the murder, but the gunman justifies the blood. Our guy cuts in, warning them that the killer definitely has a trap waiting nearby. Inside, Lee Yun scrambles to secure the floor. The madman just waves off reports of his defeated southern squad, acting like losing a small army is barely an inconvenience. The shadows shift as a massive wave of armed soldiers surges toward the gate. They move with the hungry, singular focus of someone about to wreck the place. The returner skips the fancy gear and just raises his rifle, trusting his own eyes to get the job done. When the demands to surrender hit the air, he refuses to play along. Talk about a bad opening offer. The antagonist stalks into the holding pen, ordering his masked goons to round up the civilians. He wants them cowed and shivering in the dirt for his amusement. The captives are dragged out and the horror sets in. They aren't just random bystanders. These are the team members they thought were safe, now mere human shields. A panicked subordinate screams as he's paraded around like an accessory. Watching friends treated like disposable gear is enough to make anyone want to level this place. Two sisters huddle in the dark, their faces pale with a paralyzing, genuine dread. The purple-haired sibling shields her younger sister, silently praying they aren't the next ones taken. But that fragile silence is shattered the moment the nightmare catches up with them. Luo Zhu and her friend scream for help as a brutal gang leader looms over his hostages. He mocks them, clearly getting a kick out of the fear he's causing. Talk about a bad neighborhood. This psycho, Long Ting, grabs leader Lin by the hair and presses a gun to his temple. He laughs at the idea of a rescue, but then a voice roars from the shadows. Someone clearly didn't get the memo about giving up. Zhuo Tianchen watches on, recognizing the villain from a future he refused to repeat. The enemy demands the gates open wide, totally unaware he's handing a win to the only guy who knows his every future mistake. Memories of smoking ruins turn the survivor's focus into pure steel. Knowing exactly how this monster triggers a zombie wave, he signals Gao Fei to hold the line before vaulting toward his targets. Skipping the door entirely, he leaps from the wall and crashes into the middle of the gang. The thugs are stunned, while their smug boss simply smiles, thinking he's caught a live one. He lands like a freight train, his fist instantly wrecking the first goon to get close. The sudden violence leaves the room frozen in disbelief, probably questioning their career choices. Bullets zip through the air, but the returner weaves through them like he's threading a needle. He puts the grunts on the back burner, prioritizing the terrified hostages in the center. The boss realizes his squad is dropping like flies and eyes the exit. Panic sets in, so he grabs the girls and starts running, hoping human shields will buy him a clean getaway. Gao Fei lays down lead, giving his partner the window to charge. One solid hit sends the kidnapper reeling, but the momentum causes the young girl to tumble toward a nasty drop. Moving faster than a strobe light, the hero catches her just in time. He passes her to his teammate, already turning his back on the dust as his hunt for the teacher continues. A goon begs to light him up, but the boss shakes his head. He's strangely fixated, convinced that this guy is too special to kill. He just knows they'll meet again. An ally screams a warning as he approaches the next room, but he doesn't slow down. He just kicks the door off its hinges and opens fire, showing the room who's actually in charge. He dances through a hail of return fire with effortless, annoying precision. Watching the escape vehicles vanish, the gang leader finally realizes he's no longer the hunter, he's the prey. But while the hunter prepares his final strike, the true cost of survival hides just out of sight. Luo Zhu stares at the porch, her mind elsewhere while hunger gnaws. Nearby, a woman offers food, insisting she needs fuel to function. Zhuo Tianchen stands motionless, eyeing the scene with the weight of a decade pinned to his shoulders and a boxing glove held like a ritual blade. Across the room, Zhu remains curled on the bench, ignoring the meal in favor of obsessing over her brother's arrival. The older sister leans in, soothing her with promises that everything is about to get a whole lot better. Suddenly, the air shifts as the long-awaited brother steps inside, and the girl leaps up to bury herself in his jacket. While they embrace, the sister mutters a quick, pained apology for failing to find him sooner. Classic sibling timing. He drops to one knee to look the kid in the eye, swearing he will track down her missing sister before the sun sets. Then, he pivots to bark a sharp order at his companion, reminding everyone that he has zero time to waste today. Seeing the girl finally shovel food into her mouth, the companion chuckles at the sight of such a tiny, desperate vacuum. It turns out hope is a much better appetite stimulant than actual rations. She leans in to whisper that our guy is actually a big softy, despite all the grumpy posturing. The look of pure shock on the girl's face says it all. The neighborhood tough guy act successfully fooled everyone. The sisters trade pointed jabs about who might be harboring a secret crush on the recruiter. That defensive fluster is enough to make any sane person look for the nearest exit. Walking toward the door, she tosses a final, comforting promise back. They are going to make this family whole again. The one left behind watches her go, finally letting out a long, shaky breath of relief. Inside their cruising car, Gao Fei keeps his eyes on the road while prodding the others about the girl back at base. In the backseat, the reborn fighter stares out the glass, silently calculating his next move. They hash out the mounting danger of the coming assault, noting that these new enemies are far faster than their former foes. He already knows exactly how to shred them, but he's happy to let the clock run a little longer. When a speeding vehicle flashes into view, he skips the brakes entirely and decides to show them who owns the road. The resulting collision turns the asphalt into a very dusty, very awkward business meeting. As the doors pop open, the opposing faction hands over a high-end rifle like a peace offering for their recent bad manners. The driver practically hums with joy, already lining up his optics for a perfect shot. The group gathers for a lightning-fast round of introductions, with a deadly tactical expert stepping up to present herself. He gives them all a curt nod, quietly mapping out every strength and crack in their armor before the real fight begins. But that tactical display is cut short the moment Su Zhao decides to test his patience. Su Zhao demands everyone surrender their weapons to leadership. Acting like a defenseless team is somehow safer in this nightmare. Zhu Tianchen tearfully hands over his rifle, knowing it was the group's only real insurance policy. The arrogant rescue leader rejects any extra hands, insisting 3 people are enough for the job. While Gao Fei fruitlessly protests the disarmament, the returner begs to help, currently benched in a game where he's the only one who knows the final score. The tension is thick enough to cut, and these survivors act like total war is the only logical choice. They're standing tall with full confidence, completely unaware their plan is as sturdy as a cardboard umbrella in a monsoon. Inside a remote hydropower station, Brother Long leads a blunt discussion with Fatty, second brother, and the manly one about why their last ambush hit a wall. Everyone sweats and points fingers, struggling to explain why their elaborate trap failed to secure a clean victory. The room devolves into a shouting match as subordinates trade insults to save their own skin. Watching these elite killers squabble like children when a plan goes sideways is actually kind of embarrassing. The boss flickers onto the big screen, and the room goes deathly silent in a heartbeat. One glare is enough to turn his loud, aggressive henchmen into perfectly obedient soldiers who wouldn't dare breathe out of turn. He confirms the traitor Wei Dong is dead, and 30 elite fighters are gone for good. After clearing the room to speak with his right-hand man, the fatty whispers in terror that the walls might be listening. In a private corner, the villain dishes out lethal, secret orders to prune his own ranks. The trap is being reset, and it is obvious that some loyal associates are about to become completely expendable commodities. He is already calculating his next move, fully aware that the one man he fears most is heading toward his front door. That calm, collected demeanor suggests he has been waiting to turn his turf into a slaughterhouse for a long time. In a cold, grim room, Luo Xiaozu stays bound to a chair, drifting in and out of consciousness. She looks fragile and abandoned, treated like a piece of evidence rather than a human being. The teacher stirs, only to find herself trapped in a nightmare surrounded by the people who orchestrated this mess. The look in her eyes tells you exactly how terrified she is to realize who holds the strings here. She struggles against the restraints, but she is quickly silenced by a brutal, crushing blow. It is heartbreaking to watch her hope vanish the moment she understands nobody is coming to save her just yet. The villain steps into the light, revealing he only keeps her alive because a certain rival cares about her safety. He found the perfect button to press to get exactly what he wants. To make the point clear, he pulls a weapon on young Luo Xiaoyu, forcing the teacher to witness a horrific ultimatum. She screams in protest, but the leverage is already working. She is just bait in a trap meant for a genius. The captor laughs at the cruelty of it all, savoring the way his enemies unravel under his thumb. He doesn't just want power. He wants to play with lives like pieces on a board while holding all the winning cards. He monologues about his twisted plans for torture while showing off the pails of acid waiting in the corner. He really is the classic villain who enjoys the sound of his own wicked thoughts more than the actual mission. But far from those sick games, Long Ting's false sense of security is about to shatter. Luo Xiaoyu refuses to believe that superhuman strength is anything but a myth. Watching from behind a desk, Long Ting scoffs at this denial, while obsessing over the man coming to destroy his operation. With a flick of his finger, this mastermind hits a button to douse captives in fire. He is crafting a personal hell just to see if he can break his incoming rival. Static fills the screen while victims scramble inside the feed. Below, the villain slides a knife to the bound woman, turning her struggle into a twisted game of survival. The hostage stares at the blade with hollow eyes, knowing the price of defiance is death. Her pure terror is exactly the entertainment this sadist craves before his big show. Zhuo Tianchen watches the hydro station from the brush, having seen this fortress fall a dozen times. He listens to his team scout the exits, fully aware their enemy is baiting a trap. He orders the blonde sniper to hold the ridge, keeping his rifle ready as insurance. Our guy knows better than to underestimate a man deranged enough to drown a county. Leader Lin gets the order to draw fire, acting as the team's loud, chaotic distraction. He grips his weapon, reminding everyone that saving the victims matters more than the gear. Deep in his command center, the villain grins at the monitor after hearing about a car. He is vibrating with excitement, ready for the curtains to rise on his massacre. The night goes silent, then explodes as the team opens fire on the forest guards. Suddenly, those arrogant thugs are scrambling like ants while the rescue party storms the gate. The squad pushes through a door marked with mocking graffiti, realizing the trap has been sprung. They were expected, but the enemy cares too much about a man he fears. Steel and concrete buckle as the team clears the hall like a wrecking crew. Every obstacle turns to rubble, proving heavy locks mean nothing against pure, focused, and violent intent. A sterile corridor leads to a confrontation where the architect of this misery waits, hiding behind a screen. He addresses the invaders with the smug confidence of a rigged game. The lead hero points his barrel at the display, demanding the captives be released at once. The villain just laughs, claiming the full picture is still hidden from them, as if his petty secrets could stop a man from the future. A bone-jarring impact slams into the architecture, cracking the concrete as he lands a crushing blow. The act of talking is over. The game is officially canceled. With the floor still trembling under his feet, Zhuo Tianchen wastes absolutely no time starting his rampage. Zhuo Tianchen tears through the high-tech hallway, his fingers wreathed in flames as he crushes a surveillance camera like it's made of paper. The mission has shifted gears, and he isn't leaving any eyes watching his back. He doesn't pause for breath, slamming his fist into the next console with a cold, focused fury. Luo Zhu takes a nervous step back while Su Zhao watches him work, both clearly stunned by the raw efficiency of a guy who has fought this exact war before. Deep within the control center, the lead commander paces with a face like thunder, barking orders at his men to open the first cage. He is tired of playing games. It is finally time to start trimming the intruders down to size. Su Zhao pulls a small, furry creature named Shangbao from her gear, but the pet immediately lets out a sharp, piercing shriek right by the window. The sound cuts through the silence like a siren, alerting them that their position has been given away. A glance outside reveals an ocean of shifting, blood-spattered shapes huddling against the walls, effectively sealing their only path of escape. While his friends scramble in a state of pure panic, he barely blinks. It's just another Tuesday in the end times. He shoves his allies toward the elevator, eyes fixed on the inevitable fight, firmly telling them they don't belong in the dark. Although his companion hesitates at the threshold, fearing for his safety, he gives her that look. He has already lived through worse than this. The elevator doors groan shut, leaving him alone in the dim, silent hallway as he pivots to face the incoming wall of death. He isn't worried about the odds. He's simply waiting for the first wave to reach his personal kill zone. With an explosive leap into the center of the horde, he begins swinging his weapon with more enthusiasm than a kid on a jungle gym. He carves through the shambling mass like he's clearing out a path through tall grass on a sunny afternoon. Up in the observation room, the lead antagonist and his goggle-clad henchmen watch the carnage unfold on their monitors, plotting to bleed him dry with rhythmic waves. They are banking on the idea that even a monster eventually gets tired, which is a hilarious misunderstanding of his actual endurance. Back near the living quarters, a man known only as the second brother busts into a room to find a squad member slacking off with a woman. He is clearly not in the mood for romance, while the rest of the facility is turning into a slaughterhouse. The scolding is cut short by the sudden appearance of a hitman who enters the room with his pistols already leveled and ready to fire. The air turns lethal in a heartbeat, and the room's occupants realize, far too late, that their security is non-existent. The gunman offers a cruel, mocking suggestion that dying in the arms of a woman isn't such a bad way to go before he opens fire. It's a cold, professional hit, turning a moment of illicit relaxation into a final, permanent exit for the slacking guard. With the job finished, the assassin calmly wipes his gear, secures the target data, and reports the success to his superiors upstairs. He walks away as if he just finished an errand, leaving a corpse on the floor and a very clean trail of mission completion. But the professional's calm is shattered the moment Zhu Tianchen surfaces in the heart of hell. Zhu Tianchen sits calmly among the pile of infected, smoking and sighing at the chore of moving. A nearby man screams about survivors, but he doesn't even blink. He's lived through this exact Tuesday 10 times already. His hamster-like sidekick suddenly swipes a discarded pistol, sprinting off like a rodent on a mission. He sighs and gives chase through the vents, genuinely wishing he had a leash for the hyperactive furball. He skids to a stop when he spots a pristine motorcycle tucked away in the shadows. A rare, genuine grin spreads across his face, because he knows exactly how much a working engine tilts the odds in this nightmare. The bike roars to life, cutting through the silence and making the nearby monsters scatter in panic. He cranks the throttle, turning the narrow hallway into his private drag strip with zero regard for the traffic. He tears through the center of the horde, turning his blade into a blurring arc of cold steel. He leaves a trail of broken bodies, barely brushing the floor in a display of total efficiency. As he vanishes into the dark tunnel, the focus shifts to a furious leader named Long Ting. The villain paces the control room, ready to melt down completely over a missing Yamaha R6. High above the chaos, the tormentor watches with a sadistic grin. Far below, a prisoner named Luo Zio Zhu drags her battered body up the concrete stairs, fighting every single inch for air. Her legs feel like lead, trembling uncontrollably as she tries to find a foothold. She plants her feet with a desperate pant, refusing to let the encroaching darkness of the stairwell stop her movement. Strength finally abandons her, and she collapses into a heap on the cold, hard floor. Over the intercom, a mocking voice booms, sneering at her pathetic progress through the opening stage. The broken woman stays curled on the ground as the speaker offers a cruel choice between bad news and worse news. She wants no part of his game, but the trap is already closing tight. She screams her friend's name into the void, reaching for a rescue that's currently miles away. The sadist just laughs, informing his prey that her backup is actually the one hitting the dirt today. His words drip with pure venom, designed to crush her remaining spirit. She presses both hands against her ears, blocking out the insults because she can't afford to let his poison take root. Without a shred of mercy, the villain triggers a hidden trap that sends her into a spiral of agony. He watches her pain through the monitors, treating her suffering like a low-budget horror flick. A tight close-up catches her eyes widening, revealing an unnatural flicker that suggests her fate is turning far darker. Something is glitching deep inside her, a mutation she's far too exhausted to register. The view shifts to a massive arena packed with cages full of starving, restless monsters. A terrified survivor shivers in the center, finally realizing he's just the newest toy in this sick experiment. But that shivering victim has no idea that Zhu Tianchen is already rewriting their gruesome fate. Zhu Tianchen stands amidst the ruins, calmly explaining the rules for a twisted game. Luo Zio Zhu hangs in a cage, realizing her life is now a parlor trick. He leans in with fake sympathy, hitting the shivering teacher with a bizarre question about fruit preference. Everyone watching is just as lost as she is. The air thickens as she starts a frantic countdown, her voice breaking under the pressure. It is obvious the deck is stacked against her from the very start. She claims to love oranges, but he just grins, having already decided the answer was no. The trap shuts, proving the truth never mattered in the first place. Classic unfair villain energy. He shows zero mercy as an axe swings toward Fatty Wei. The floor gives way, sending the screaming man plunging into the dark abyss. The victim claws for help as he falls, but the leader watches with the cold focus of someone checking his watch. Talk about a tough crowd. Elsewhere, the mood shifts to a secure office where Second Brother updates the boss on fleeing survivors. The commander reclines, already crunching the numbers with a sharp mind. His subordinate slides a detonator across the desk like a death warrant. He just grins at the thought of the incoming fireworks. Who needs an alarm clock when you have explosions? Across the compound, Gao Fei surveys the perimeter with a redhead, dreading the lethal odds against the armed guards. They have no clue their best distraction is already walking into the trap. A board guard stands in the shadows, shouting cruel commands at the trapped prisoners. He is clearly hunting for ways to make their night even more miserable. He stops mid-rant, his gaze locking onto a shadow creeping through the darkness. The goon reaches for his gun, wondering if a mindless monster is approaching. His eyes light up with predatory hunger, then widen in confusion as the light hits Li Yun. Seeing a little girl instead of a prisoner definitely wasn't on his bingo card for the night. But Zhu Tianchen doesn't care for surprises, already moving on to the next disaster waiting to unfold. Leader Lin senses something off and pauses the team. On the red track, the blonde athlete sprints, passing a baton to the dark-haired teammate. Zhu Tianchen ignores them entirely, knowing exactly how this relay ends. Deep in the woods, Gao Fei goes prone to scan the shadows. He curses a stray tree trunk for blurring his vision and hiding the enemy's trail. Talk about a really persistent piece of lumber. The returner stands by a red motorcycle, drilling Luo Zio Zhu for secrets. He needs every last detail to keep the hostages from being moved again. He's seen this movie before, and the spoilers are brutal. Duan Chiru creeps through the dark halls, muzzling a guy to maintain total silence. Su Ryu Xuan flashes a sharp grin as they finally corner the little hostage, Luo Zio Yu. It's supposed to be their big moment. The two vultures lure the hungry girl away with promises of a big sausage. She blindly follows, unaware she's walking straight into a trap. Clearly, she's never heard of stranger danger. Sudden chaos rocks the building as an alert screams through the air. Luo Lancia bursts through the door with dual pistols, holding everyone at gunpoint. This just went from a rescue to a full-blown hostile takeover. Su Ryu Xuan freezes while her teammate rages at the sudden sabotage. Nearby, Gao Zhai levels his rifle, frantically trying to paint a target in the madness. It's target-rich and nobody is happy. The traitorous woman presses a jagged blade against a man's neck, betting lives on his survival. Her terrified allies beg their leader not to pull the trigger. A very tense standoff for all involved. The air outside is thick enough to choke on during this high-stakes standoff. She warns that her death guarantees everyone stays down, and rifles click in unison. Nothing says, "fun afternoon," like a guaranteed group suicide pact. A shadow suddenly rips through the glass skylight, raining shards down like lethal confetti. The newcomer clearly thinks doors are far too mainstream for an exit strategy. He hits the floor in a cloud of dust, clutching a heavy crowbar. Su Ryu Xuan greets brother Tian Cheng, visibly relieved his flair for entrances didn't leave him face down. He's definitely the main attraction now. He doesn't wait for applause before leveling his pistol to shred the opposition. Foes go down before they can even realize their boss got outplayed. Aggressive negotiation at its finest. The blur streaks past the tires like a ghost haunting the facility. He stays 10 steps ahead, turning their panic into his own choreographed dance. Fast enough to break the speed limit anyway. Across the line, every face painted on the wall stares back in pure bewilderment. When a guy drops from the ceiling to ruin your trap, surprise is the only logical reaction. Current score, 1 roof, 0 dignity. But Zhu Tianchen doesn't care for their confusion, and the real slaughter is only just beginning. Zhu Tianchen stands amidst the enemy, his grip on his pistol steady despite the chaos. Beneath a mask, he suddenly downs one of his 3 captives to signal that survival has changed. A cold way to start a meeting. He doesn't waste breath on small talk. Pressing the barrel against a guard's head, he demands to know where the hostages are hidden. He enjoys watching the man try to decide if he's brave enough to lie. When the captive stays silent, our guy delivers a crushing blow that sends him sprawling. Duan Chiru watches, visibly worried about the boss's reaction, but his partner is already set on this path of total dominance. Power plays wait for no one. Meanwhile, in a sterile control room, Long Ting exerts his authority to bypass the security wall. He's itching to release something truly monstrous, entirely unbothered by the fact that Fatty Wei just died because of his choices. Some friends are just fuel for the fire. Second brother stares at the keypad, his fingers shaking as he enters the final bypass codes. Realization hits him hard. His leader intends to unleash a nightmare that will likely kill everyone left inside this facility. Tactically speaking, this is a career suicide move. The subordinate pleads for his life and the lives of those trapped in the complex, reminding the villain of the heavy cost paid to seal this danger. It's a tragic waste of breath, but at least he tried. The antagonist doesn't even blink, pulling his weapon to end the conversation with a single gunshot. He tosses aside his own man like a piece of expired waste, not exactly big on employee retention. He stands over the cooling body, mocking the dead man for his sentimental weakness. In these ruins, might is the only language that matters, and his old tormentor is clearly the only one fluent in it. Under the night sky, their team gathers to piece together the enemy's messy plan. They finally realize the observatory tower is the focal point, making the previous decoys in the basement look like a desperate diversion. Always check the map twice. Panic sets in as the group realizes their leader is walking into a death trap out there. He shouts for the team to mobilize and get everyone to safety before the sector turns into a graveyard. Time to scramble. He drags a survivor out of the dark and forces the truth out about the basement levels. The news that they are jammed with monsters is something he already accounted for before he was even born. Well, technically. Stalking through the corridor, he watches a wall monitor flicker to life. His rival appears, spending precious time mocking his progress from a distance. The classic villain handbook really needs a new chapter on efficiency. Inside a dim room, the antagonist looms over Teacher Luo, spelling out a final cruel ultimatum. He wants a race against the clock, unknowingly playing against someone who has already finished the game. Good luck with that. Fueled by sudden, controlled fury, he obliterates the surveillance equipment with one swift strike. He orders his guide to move immediately, focused only on finding the hostage before it's too late. The patience is gone. In the suffocating dark, a face begins to warp with veins spreading like black cracks. Something here isn't just infected, it's mutating in a way that breaks every rule he remembers. Nature is getting creative again. The creature lunges with jarring speed, forcing him to scramble back to avoid a strike that would have snapped his back. Even Gao Fei looks genuinely rattled by the raw, unnatural power manifesting here. That's not supposed to happen. He realizes in a heartbeat that his current gear won't stop this evolutionary surge. The beast looms over him, a wall of pure danger he didn't expect to face today. No more holding back now. Zhuo Tianchen exhales, shifts his weight, and lets the muscle memory take control. Zhuo Tianchen moves through the wreckage with the terrifying efficiency of a man who has already lived this war 100 times over. He lunges at a host infected by a parasite, closing the gap before the creature even realizes it's under attack, because he remembers his training. Old habits die hard. Without a second of hesitation, he drives his hand directly into the creature's skull, ending the threat with a wet, final crunch. Standing over the remains, the reborn survivor can't help but reflect on his own growing power, knowing that in this ruined world, you either evolve or you end up just another stain on the concrete. He pauses, closing his eyes to activate his detection mode, feeling the ambient hum of the surrounding area through his heightened senses. The lone warrior realizes his abilities have evolved enough to scan for parasites while moving, giving him an edge that would have been heaven-sent back in the day. A minor ambush attempt by a stray parasite is dealt with effortlessly, but his internal alarm bells start ringing when the ground begins to vibrate. A massive, heavy thud echoes through the ruins, far too loud to be anything he's encountered yet. It sounds like an elephant decided to go jogging. He watches as a small parasite clings to a dying host, but his attention is shattered by the hulking, muscular silhouette of a Stage 2 infected emerging from the darkness. With glowing eyes and a frame built like a nightmare, this is a clear sign that the rules he remembers are fundamentally broken. Caught off guard, our guy narrowly dodges a bone-crushing strike from the behemoth, his mind racing to understand the sudden surplus of evolved monsters. He spent his whole life preparing for the familiar, but these shifts in the status quo are starting to feel less like bad luck and more like a deliberate, twisted setup. As he rolls away from the monster's reach, he analyzes the creature's movements and realizes it isn't just strong. It's rapidly adapting and mutating for the kill. He knows he has to end this before the mutation fully locks in, because if he gives this giant a chance to settle, he won't be walking away. He lunges into the thick of the fight, squashing a smaller target under his boot with a sickening pop before dancing away from a massive, sweeping arm. It's a deadly game of cat and mouse where the cat happens to be the size of a shipping container. The giant clocks him with a direct hit that sends him skidding backward, the sheer kinetic force leaving him breathless. Even with his enhanced body, the raw physical power of this mutation is enough to rattle his teeth and remind him just how fragile human bones truly are. That definitely left a bruise. He catches his breath and spots it, a slight, fragile opening in the parasite's erratic defense. Instead of bashing against the host's thick hide, he shifts his focus, mentally locking onto the core that holds this chaotic mess of biology together. The monster lets out a deafening roar that ripples through the very air, signaling that it is far from finished. A shadow of genuine concern crosses the fighter's face, because he realizes that the game he thought he was controlling has suddenly leveled up. This just got personal. Grotesque muscle fibers tear and reform in real time, layering over the monster's body as it evolves into its terrifying hammer shape. It's an agonizing, beautiful display of biological warfare that makes it clear he is not fighting a simple zombie, but an engineered weapon of mass destruction. The mutation finishes with a sickening crunch, leaving a bald, massive monstrosity standing there with a fist the size of a wrecking ball. It's hard to call it bad luck when it feels like the universe is actively trying to rewrite his obituary. Talk about a glow-up. Far away from the carnage, Long Ting watches the live feed on a wall of monitors, coolly discussing the outcome of the battle as if he's betting on a horse race. To this observer, the combatant is nothing more than a test subject caught in a blockade, a pawn that's finally starting to sweat. The antagonist with glasses leans forward with a twisted grin, deciding it's finally time to spice up the show with a wager. He offers to reveal the location of the lost hostages if the desperate hero can somehow pull off the impossible and take down the hammer-wielding freak. Zhu Tianchen doesn't wait for an answer before the hammer drops. A massive bone-crushing fist slams into the ground, but Zhu Tianchen catches it with his blade. The impact rings out like an artillery shell, nearly shattering everything within reach. Not exactly a polite greeting. He doesn't wait for the dust to clear, lunging forward with a strike fast enough to trigger a small explosion. It's a textbook hit, aimed entirely at ending the threat before the fight truly begins. Up close, the monster towers like a living mountain peak made for raw carnage. He stares into those bottomless eyes, fully aware this beast is leagues beyond the weaklings from his first timeline. The creature hammers the earth into rubble, ignoring every rule of physics to treat solid concrete like wet cardboard. Clearly, this is an unwelcome guest who didn't come here to talk. Amidst the chaos, the veteran taps his comms to check on his team, desperate to keep them off the fatality list this time. Before anyone can report in, a blur of motion screams past, signaling the lull is over. An absolute wrecking ball of a strike launches our guy through the air, flinging him like a discarded ragdoll. His allies scream in collective panic, unaware that he is just getting his heart rate up. He finds his footing in a thick cloud of dust, waving away the worry while holding a cursed, glowing red gemstone. This rock is a death sentence, but for him, it's just another piece to flip. Across the facility, the glasses-wearing antagonist toys with the same lethal stone, his smile cold enough to stop a heartbeat. He is busy mapping out a retreat to the warehouse, treating the hostages like expendable board game pieces. Deep in the dark, a survivor girl plummets into a pit filled with monsters, her scream echoing off the cold metal. A bald captive watches in horror, realizing too late that the floor is just a trap. Down in that hellish cage, the girl tries to rally the others, pleading for them to keep their wits and talk their way out. The terror in the room is suffocating, but she refuses to let them crumble. The tormentor's voice sneers over the intercom, turning survival into a twisted, multiple-choice nightmare where one error equals death. He clearly loves the sound of his own wickedness, treating their lives like a pathetic reality show. She squares her shoulders, staring at the screen and trying to blink the right answer into existence. Options are scarce, so she bets everything on her logic to stay alive. With the timer dropping fast, she dissects his predictable pattern and concludes that none of the listed locations are correct. She selects the final option, hoping her gut is faster than the trap. The mastermind mocks her deduction, admitting she found the right location, but gaslighting her into believing it's still a loss. It's the classic move of a bully who shifts the goalposts the second he starts losing. High above, the villain leans into his megaphone like a king surveying his subjects. He has everything perfectly staged, completely oblivious to the fact that he is already walking into a trap. But before that trap can even snap shut, Zhu Tianchen is already rewriting the rules of engagement. Leader Lin checks on Su Ryu Xuan. She's rattled, but our guy jumps straight into the fray. Zhu Tianchen slams a fist into the hammer shape infected, leaving his ally staring in total confusion. She clearly forgot the playbook. Dust chokes the air as the lead fighter prepares to face this massive wall of muscle entirely alone. He mutters about his teammates being complete dunderheads while his sights lock onto Long Ting. He knows this isn't just a brawl, it's a setup he's been planning for years. Crouching low in the brush, the commander traces two loose circles into the dirt to map out the hydropower station and observatory. Gao Fei leans in, hungry to memorize every inch of this infiltration plan before they move. The squad pauses to critique an advanced detection mode. They realize with a jolt they can peer into the third building's silent interior without walking into a snare. The strategist's eyes light up. He's just spotted his chance to turn this whole mission into a trap. Standing near the hulking monster, he orders the others to create a heavy diversion at the observatory. He's staying back to soak up some punishment because, honestly, he's too weak to win this clean. It's a classic power-up gambit. Muscles strain and veins pop as he grapples with the creature, the impact shaking the very dirt beneath them. He knows he's hitting a hard ceiling, but smashing through this limit is the only way to evolve before the next major disaster. Inside the control room, the returner absorbs a beating that would liquefy a normal soldier. Panic sweeps through the enemy ranks as their radios howl with bad news. The observatory line is snapping like a cheap twig. Learning his elites are getting shredded, the antagonist maintains an eerie calm. He decides to scrap the current defense, choosing instead to burn his own ground to bait a surprise strike on the ancient city wall. Su Ryuk-Xuan finds her zone with a high-end rifle, dropping targets before they even blink. Luo Zhu dances through the melee, whipping her hair like a serrated blade to carve up the remaining guards. They're calling for help, but the line is dead. A single gunshot snaps, and a target hits the dirt. The sniper maintains a chilling efficiency, clearing the path while the villain scurries deeper into the facility. He's clearly sweating now that his front door is crumbling. Duan Chiru waits, bound to a cold metal chair as a high-stakes bargaining chip. Her captor gloats, safe in his hubris, blind to the fact that his visitor has already survived this horror once before. But before Zhu Tianchen can settle the score, a sudden, brutal collision tears the conversation apart. A massive Stage 2 infected slams Zhu Tianchen with iron hammers so fast he goes sailing. That hit isn't just strong, it's a total reality check. He finds his footing under a gloomy sky to test his body's limits. Just as he preps to level up, that internal prompt points him toward his goal. His focus snaps to the warehouse, but the monster senses his moment of distraction. It craters the earth instantly, forcing him to scramble away just to keep breathing. His blonde ally shrieks over the radio like the world is ending right now. It is, but watching this beast finalize its parasite evolution is just Tuesday for him. Knowing he can't win at his current power, he triggers his glowing tattoo. The creature senses the threat shift, matching his newfound speed with a blur of aggression. He tracks the seconds, moving with such lethal precision that he practically teleports away. The beast swings its heavy hammers, hitting nothing but air and frustration. A violent tremor rips through the ground, where the creature stands frozen in shock. Dust billows to reveal the reborn soldier has finally arrived to take control. Wrapped in flickers of red energy, he sighs about how tedious leveling up is. The monster, stunned by this sudden reversal, stares up in genuine, throbbing pain. When the brute tries to crush him, he catches the hammers with one hand. His palm glows with geometric light, batting away the lethal strike like a bug. He studies his own burning hand, feeling the raw force of Stage 2. It's the difference between being a survivor and becoming lunch. He unleashes a single, brutal punch that warps the monster's face entirely. Brute strength counts for very little when you've already died and seen the final result. He weaves under a panicked swing to deliver a quick, stinging counterstrike. The tanky creature is tough, but armor doesn't help if you can't touch anything. As red energy fibers harden along his arm, the muscle strengthening ability kicks in. His limb transforms into a piston built for nothing but pure destruction. He leaps with predatory grace, pinning the beast under a crater-forming kick. The creature never stood a chance against someone who already knew the script by heart. High above, a panicked observer watches the carnage on a monitor in disbelief. He's sweating, though he probably realizes by now he's just audience for a show that was already written. But far from the cameras, Zhu Tianchen fights a battle against time itself. Zhu Tianchen clings to the hilltop, hunting for a signal while the fire lines draw relentlessly closer. Nearby, Duan Chiru waits, but the silence on the comms is deafening. Tonight, timing is everything. Deep in the forest, Su Ryuk-Xuan slams her boot into a captive, demanding he spill where his boss is hiding. She's not here for a chat, so the guy in the white shirt had better start talking fast. Her blade glints in the dark as she corners him, but the prisoner holds firm. Since he clearly wants to keep his secrets, she decides to let him breathe, at least until the main event starts. Inside the fortified bunker, Leader Lin is losing his mind, screaming at a red-haired lackey to unleash every monster in the pen. He knows the perimeter is cracking, and he's clearly terrified of the consequences. The boss waves off his subordinates' doubts, convinced his scrap heap defenses will somehow hold off an army. He's betting his skin on a pile of corpses and a blind prayer. With the henchman gone, the coward sinks into his chair, trying to ignore the gnawing feeling that his luck has finally run dry. His heart just won't stop hammering against his ribs. Suddenly, all the bravado vanishes as a cold realization hits him. He is genuinely afraid of one man. The arrogance he spent years building is just a house of cards. Pacing the floor, the villain clenches a flaming fist in a desperate, shaky pep talk. He's sweating through his suit because he knows exactly who is coming for him. Watching from the corner, the hostage Luo Lancia stares him down, echoing the very fears he's trying to suppress. Being judged by your own prisoner is tough. She doesn't flinch, coldly informing the boss that his past sins have finally circled back around. There is absolutely nowhere left for him to run. He growls a denial, squeezing his hand until the heat flickers, but his wide eyes betray him. He looks like a guy who's just realized he's on death row. A shrill screech cuts through the static of his radio, confirming that his worst nightmare has breached the gate. His jaw almost hits the floor in pure shock. Without a word of warning, a massive, glowing red fist turns his concrete wall into a cloud of shrapnel. The threat isn't just a rumor anymore, it's knocking. Debris showers the room as our guy walks through the hole in the wall, looking entirely too calm. With his allies closed behind, he makes it clear the hunt is over. But before Zhuo Tianchen can savor the victory, a fresh vantage point reveals the true carnage. Zhuo Tianchen stands on a ledge, watching the chaos he triggered below. The horde swarms the floor, and he finds a cold peace in seeing his past disasters become his current tools of trade. Not a bad way to start the morning. In the shadows, Longting stares through his spectacles with a wild, desperate look. The man is convinced he's taking the entire building down with him, and Luo Zhu watches in terror as that plan takes root. 3 hulking monsters emerge from the thick smoke like a bad hangover. They are the villain's big guns, but they aren't news to the returner. He's been waiting a decade to see this exact show. The dying man tries to bargain, offering to spare the hero if he gives away the secret of his strength. The smug returner just scoffs like he's being asked to tip a waiter with monopoly money. Moving with a speed that defies logic, he throws a punch that clears the field. A pack of charging infected fly backward like bowling pins, barely realizing they were even hit. Talk about a strike. He stalks through the debris, reclaiming the raw power he once held in his prime. Every step toward his old tormentor counts down the seconds until the shift in power turns fatal. Outside in the rain, the desperate antagonist realizes he is out of options. His minions report that their bullets are doing nothing but bouncing off armor, which is just another way of saying they're cooked. The villain turns back to the bound woman, deciding if he cannot win, he will at least leave a mark. It is a petty final act even for him. With sick intent, he jams a glowing red stone into her mouth, and she chokes as the parasitic magic locks in. There is no joy here, just a cruel, forced evolution taking hold of her. The returner crashes into the chamber just in time to see the horror unfold. He screams for her as the reality sinks in. Even with all his memories, some things are just too fast to stop. He lunges at the mastermind, his eyes lit with a promise of pain. Nearby, a new, twisted creature finishes hatching while the enemy cackles, oblivious to the fact that his monster is about to be the next problem. In the pouring rain, the hero says there is no future left for his opponent now. He gathers his strength for one final, clean blow, his expression set in total, quiet focus. Mid-swing, he freezes as the wind shifts, his eyes finding a new threat hiding in the dark. He snarls a warning to look behind them because the real show is only just getting started. But that warning is a split second too late, and the monster lands a brutal, crippling blow. Zhuo Tianchen gets launched like a ragdoll into jagged debris, the impact shuddering through his frame. He barely has a second to breathe, but he isn't panicked. He remembers how this dance ends. He weaves through the assault, eyes locked on a target beneath the monster's defense. Every movement is a calculated risk to find an opening before his strength runs dry. A well-placed strike lands, but his attention snaps toward the shadows where a coward is slinking away. He knows exactly where the target is headed. Nobody escapes his watch list. With the focus of a surgeon, he manifests crimson energy to drive into the chest of his former mentor. The goal isn't murder. It's surgery to rip the soul-stealing stone right out. As the pulsating source of corruption leaves her body, she instantly drops, muscles losing their supernatural tension. He catches her before she hits the ground, cradling the weight of a person who has suffered far too much. He doesn't waste a heartbeat on pleasantries, turning his back on the fallen to pursue the man who set this nightmare in motion. The path of revenge is much shorter than the villain's suspects. The antagonist stands in a clearing, towering over his prisoners as if he owns their very existence. He sneers at their defiance, clearly enjoying the sound of his own voice. When the captive taker asks why they are still fighting, a manic laugh cuts through the woods. The returner emerges, looking like a guest who just heard the punchline to a very bad joke. He keeps his movements fluid, corralling his friends away while keeping a sharp eye on those twitchy hands. He needs everyone far enough away to survive the coming fallout. The villain rips open his shirt to reveal a ticking bomb strapped to his own ribs. He thinks it's a winning hand, but he has no idea he's playing against a guy who's seen this deck checked before. Terror screams across the faces of those watching as they realize this is an end-of-the-world level tantrum. They scramble backward, but the bomber is beaming like he just won the lottery. A single mechanical click rings out, echoing in the deafening silence of the clearing. It's no longer a suggestion. The countdown to oblivion has officially hit 0. The world turns into a blinding, white-hot roar as the payload detonates. Fire and debris rewrite the entire map in a fraction of a second. The blast breaks something far greater than trees, tearing open the earth to unleash a tidal wave of water. A watery grave waits to happen, sweeping over the landscape with relentless fury. He is tossed around in the churning, freezing currents, fighting to stay conscious while searching for his friends. It is a chaotic tug-of-war against the tide, and the water is definitely winning. Nearby, a companion is losing his grip, flailing as he admits his failure to tread water. The currents are pitiless, and panic is the fastest way to drown. He spots a massive boulder hurtling through the wake, and he screams a warning before it can crush anything. It is a frantic race against physics. Just as he tries to correct the situation, a hand grabs his arm, and he realizes he is being pulled under. The water closes over his head, leaving the surface behind as the dark grips them tight. But Zhuo Tianchen isn't going to let a watery grave stop his second chance at survival. Zhuo Tianchen wakes up in the cramped, dark cabin of a moving truck, while a brown-haired girl leans over him with genuine concern. She has no idea he has lived through the world ending 10 times already. A bearded man with a jagged scar sneers, telling everyone to stop searching for the lost allies. He treats the missing like dead weight, while the girl shoots a look that could melt steel. When the scarred man draws his weapon to enforce his narrow view, the air in the truck turns freezing cold. Zhuo snatches the wrist holding the gun with a motion so fluid it makes the aggressor look like he is moving through honey. Talk about a rude awakening. The truck finally clatters to a halt, and the group spills out onto the cold, deserted pavement. They waste no time, crouching together under the gray sky to boil a single, pathetic pot of instant noodles over a flickering flame. Lunchtime is the best time. Steam rises as they shovel the broth into their mouths, treating the meager meal like a 5-star banquet. It is the kind of quiet, desperate normalcy that makes you crave a sandwich just by looking at it. The mood pivots from hungry to chaotic as the traveler effortlessly polishes off his 5th bowl of noodles. The man with the scar begins to lose his mind, shrieking about rations as if those extra calories were the difference between life and death. Someone needs a nap. Ignoring the frantic meeting called by his impatient companions, the newcomer simply turns back to the truck to hunt for more snacks. He knows his body is currently a furnace running at maximum capacity. Calories are king here. Settling into a meditative stance, the hunter focuses on the internal fire driving his ravenous metabolism. The second stage abilities are bleeding his stamina dry, and he has to hit the next level of power just to keep functioning. The rest of the group huddles near the truck, whispering loudly enough for everyone to hear about dumping their bottomless pit passenger on the road. They act like they are parenting a difficult stray cat rather than dealing with the guy who just humiliated their leader. Standing up to tower over the argument, the returner keeps his voice impossibly calm while demanding to know where this vehicle is actually headed. He is not looking for charity. He is vetting their road trip for efficiency. They boast about reaching Longhua City while painting him as a deadweight liability. He ignores the insults to cut to the chase, asking if they have any knowledge of the shady organization known as Hongyi. Getting straight to the juicy part. A flash of a dark, mid-May memory sends a shiver through the conversation, reminding our guy of the exact day those bastards started tearing reality apart. He agrees to ride with them to their destination, but only because he has his own scores to settle there. The short-haired girl starts begging the others not to kick him out, terrified that the open road will claim him. It is a sweet sentiment, though the scarred man is still clutching his rigid, survivalist rulebook like a holy relic. Eventually, the group grumbles and reaches a reluctant compromise, agreeing to bring the ravenous traveler along to Longhua City. He has secured his transport, even if he has to put up with their whining for a few more 100 miles. But that smooth ride to Longhua is about to get a whole lot bloodier for Zhang Zhenyu. Zhang Zhenyu stands amongst the skeletal ruins of a dead city. Blood streaks his face from the endless waves of attackers. He isn't planning on surviving, he just wants the others to escape. Li Wuyi jolts awake as if hunted, clutching at thin air. The ghost of a friend fades, so he hits the floor. Grief is just fuel for his workout. He doesn't stop his 500 reps, pushing past the burning pain. A muscular stranger watches, surely thinking the kid is aiming for a sanity trophy. Zhuo Tianchen eventually catches his breath to offer advice on training. He knows a strong body is the only way to change their dark future. The younger fighter listens intently, weighing his strength against the horrors to come. The group gathers indoors to map out a new, less suicidal mission. Luo Zhu suggests a risky destination that might save their entire supply run. Our hero leans in with curious questions about the service station. She swats him away for being dense, reminding him that luxury isn't an option. The boss starts reminiscing about cycling across the country in better days. He shows photos of a world before the monsters. It's a peaceful, surreal distraction from their grim reality. He hides his past life trauma behind a mask of calm. Knowing that station spells disaster, he accepts a meal while plotting how to survive it. They trade gear secrets while finishing their food, shifting to the blunt language of steel. She cracks open a heavy chest, revealing an arsenal of guns. Armed only with a pipe, the kid steps into the freezing station lobby. They spot a barricade, a massive red flag. Someone reached this place first, and they clearly aren't friendly. The veteran leader barks out urgent orders, posting guards at the van. The core group pushes into the deathly silence as the void echoes their steps. The trio creeps through the entrance like they're walking on glass mines. The woman warns the man to stay sharp, since every corner is a lethal gamble. The teenager suddenly calls out enemy positions before anyone fires a shot. Lead rips through the air, forcing them to scramble for cover instantly. Our guy moves in a frantic, inhuman blur, swinging his simple pipe. The leader falls back, likely giving his protege room to show off his skills. He connects with an enemy by the window, hitting with wrecking ball force. The entire structure groans under the impact, flipping the script on their ambushers. The observers can only stare in disbelief at the sudden shift in momentum. It's hard to stay tactical when you're watching a threat get dismantled by plumbing. But before the dust even settles, Zhuo Tianchen finds himself in a far more dangerous predicament. Zhuo Tianchen stands in a cramped alley, facing 3 gunmen who think they hold all the cards. They have no idea he has lived this exact standoff before, so he lets them posture. He has zero interest in following their script. One twitchy thug spins around, demanding to know where his target vanished. He's looking at empty air while our guy is already repositioning like a ghost. He's playing checkers while the returner is finishing a game of chess. Rifles click on empty chambers, turning their aggressive display into a pathetic silent movie. The lead survivalist dances through their line of fire with ease, systematically breaking their spirit. It's not even a fair fight. A single, precise strike drops the toughest attacker, and the Mohawk sporting survivor immediately hits the ground begging. The threat is gone, replaced by a coward who realized he picked the wrong day for a scrap. With his hands tied, the prisoner starts spilling secrets about the 5th floor to save his skin. He's terrified, realizing too late that his captor treats the future like a history textbook. A strange, humming energy vibrates through the structure, signaling that something worse is hiding nearby. He leaves his companion to watch the prisoner while he ventures alone to find the source of this rot. In the dim stairwell, a sharp scream stops him in his tracks. He finds a woman named Luo Zio Zhu cornered by 2 thugs who think they own this entire building. A close-up shows her desperate face as the lead tormentor dares the bystanders to intervene. These guys are clearly power-tripping, convinced that nobody here has the guts to stand up to them. As she is held down, a survivor in a pink shirt tries to find his voice, but gets shut down by the paralyzed crowd. Fear has turned everyone else into human statues. The bystander yells out that he just wants to stay alive, accidentally mentioning Kayan being abused nearby. The main bully just grins, happy to watch everyone turn on each other. The captives find a sudden, spark-like burst of defiance and scream back at the men holding them. It's a suicidal move, but in this nightmare, a little pride is all they have left. The abductor reacts with a brutal punch, turning the tense space into a scene of pure agony. The victims collapse as the reality of their situation burns through the room. Standing over his prey, the aggressor sneers as the rest of the room essentially curls into a ball. They've fully surrendered to the silence, choosing safety over doing anything else. He drags her into the dark, leaving his blonde partner to loom over the terrified crowd. The end of this standoff is finally in sight, and the returner is closing the gap. But before he finishes the job, he finds himself face-to-face with a total amateur. Zhuo Tianchen stares down the man holding a gun to the girl's head. It's adorable that they think a simple pistol works after the world ended. Cute. They brag about firepower and decoys, but he doesn't blink at their posturing. He just wants the hostage released before his patience fully evaporates. He closes the gap in a heartbeat, kicking the guy like a discarded toy. The thug slams into the wall with a sickening crunch. Lesson learned. A shot rings out, wasted on air alone. The returner stands over the trembling hostage like a mountain as his stunned audience tries to process the speed. The young woman huddles on the floor, still reeling from a death trap that ended too fast. He tosses her a coat, a rare kindness in this wasteland. He kneels to bandage her leg with the steady hands of a total veteran. She explains how their group fractured after the wreck and that sudden mutation. A nervous guy in pink eyes him, finally identifying their savior from the old days. He stammers out a greeting, shocked that a classmate is still walking around. Zhao Lin thinks back to their dead friends while squinting at the newcomer. He expects a reunion, but the icy stare he gets says he's barking up the wrong tree. The survivor tries a snide remark about his survival, clearly salty about his own failures. Our guy dismisses the talk, making it clear they were never actually friends. When the man in pink blocks his path to demand a trip down memory lane, the returner sighs. He's already bored by this pointless school spirit nonsense. His old tormentor throws an arm over him, demanding he be less difficult. The hero's eyes turn into frozen shards as he violently shakes off the contact. The guy tries to buy an escort to Longhua City, then turns nasty when ignored. Low blows about a fatherless childhood really highlight his own pathetic character. A sudden, heavy pressure vibrates the air, catching the bully completely off guard. He's too arrogant to see he is goading a man who could end him. Without a word, the returner swipes his legs out and flattens him against the concrete. The sound of that impact is the only feedback he's giving. The bully writhes in the dirt, clutching his chest and regretting his life choices. He failed the simplest math of this apocalypse: never pick a fight with a legend. But Zhuo Tianchen isn't finished teaching him the cost of his arrogance just yet. Zhuo Tianchen squeezes his old tormentor so tight the coward starts turning blue. A girl screams for mercy nearby, but he ignores her pleas completely. He knows that silence is the only thing this trash has earned today. The girl stops shouting to beg the reborn survivor for a lifeline instead. She promises him anything if he just gets these poor people to safety. He weighs the request, acting like it is a heavy burden, even though he has mapped this entire disaster out already. Night falls like a lead weight as the survivors crowd near the fire. The woman catches his attention through the gloom, watching as a scavenger dumps fresh wood onto the flames. It is the perfect stage for a little camping drama. He probes the group with an expert eye, spotting the telltale signs of recent bandit captives. The girl realizes she completely underestimated him and rushes to organize their gear. She probably thinks he might vanish into thin air if she blinks. A scarred stranger approaches with a friendly grin and a bottle to smooth things over. This guy tries to pry into their travel plans, but our leader politely shuts down the offer to visit their base. He knows that dump is basically a death trap waiting to happen. Lao Hai turns his gaze toward the refugees, making it clear they are nothing but expendable baggage. He threatens to kick anyone out who cannot keep the pace, but the man in charge just watches, totally unimpressed by these low-budget threats. While the world sleeps, he sits in the dirt under a cold, starry sprawl. He draws in shimmering red energy, bending the very air to his will. You do not get this efficient without a little extra effort. He finishes his ritual with a long, steady breath, feeling the path to strength grow longer. Stretch by stretch, he runs through plans he once made with friends who are no longer here. It is a lonely way to build a legacy. Painful memories flash, showing a friend losing his arm in a blood-soaked nightmare. He remembers the hell of running through waves of monsters to save someone meant to anchor his soul to this timeline. No jokes here. He lost everything once. Standing alone in the dark, the weight of the upcoming journey hits him. Navigating the provinces without his true allies leaves him dangerously prone to mistakes. He wonders if they are even surviving this mess right now. Suddenly, the atmosphere ripples, and his face hardens into a mask of pure, tactical focus. He does not need his ears to know something is stalking through the brush. He taps his internal systems to start the scan. Ghostly outlines flare into existence as his detection sweep cuts through the heavy fog. Hidden figures wait in the ruins for prey, unaware they are the ones about to be hunted. But as Zhuo Tianchen stalks from the shadows, the silence of the ruins is already fracturing. The group shuffles through the gloom, their footsteps sounding like a death sentence. Zhuo Tianchen hobbles along, his injured leg screaming that survival isn't exactly high-speed today. A green-eyed woman glances over with genuine concern for that nasty wound. A man with a cane laughs, mocking the limp as a convenient excuse to skip labor. Real tactful. That cane wielder tries to puff out his chest until the injured returner turns around. He lets out a squeak, immediately backpedaling into pathetic, cowardly apologies for his previous lip. The blue-haired fighter sighs, lecturing the group on how logic fails in this chaotic hellscape. His sycophant friend nods along aggressively, showering the guy with desperate, awkward praise. Deciding he is done with this noise, the protagonist stops to catch his breath. His senses itch, detecting a cold presence behind him that definitely wasn't on the guest list. He turns slowly, eyes locking onto a familiar silhouette emerging from the static. It is an old enemy, proving some nightmares refuse to stay dead regardless of the timeline. A massive clawed foot slams into the pavement, shattering the asphalt like brittle glass. He stares, watching the skeletal beast unfold into the lantern light. Talk about a rude awakening. He shouts a warning, his voice ripping through the air to warn the others. Razor-sharp claws tear through the space he just vacated, turning the night into a masterclass in survival. Meeting the monster head-on, he dodges a lethal swipe with the grace of a pro. A single punch lands with wrecking ball force, sending the creature stumbling back in genuine shock. Bolting past the cowering group, the returner shoves a pipe-wielding fighter out of the kill zone. He barks at them to stop acting like roadblocks and moves to engage the threat. The twisted monster looms over that dazed guy as his metal weapon clatters away. The man stares up, reflection trapped in dead, soulless eyes, waiting for the killing blow. The woman draws her handgun, firing desperate, rhythmic cracks into the dark to distract it. She shrieks for Kyan to run, hoping to become the monster's only focus. Bullets ping harmlessly off the hide, leaving nothing but shallow, useless scratches. The beast lets out a deafening roar, clearly deciding she is the next course on the menu. The gray-haired fighter scrambles up, swinging his iron pipe and swearing he won't quit. He bellows for the girl to get out of sight, acting as a final, brittle wall. He strains against the monster's reach, muscles burning and face contorted in desperate prayer. Standing against something that feels no pain is a quick way to reach your limit. The creature skips the fair play, hoisting the man into the air like a toy. A voice screams in the dark, but the beast loves the panic way too much. With a grunt, it tosses the fighter onto the concrete and throws its head back. A piercing, high-frequency screech ripples through the night. This hunt started a long time ago. An explosion blooms near the monster, forcing it to howl while its opponent lies motionless. Despite the damage, hunger remains a powerful motivator for things that have nothing left. Shaking off the heat, the creature grins maliciously at the survivors near the building. It is hungry, it is angry, and it has decided tonight is far from over. But that sadistic hunger is about to meet a man who has already buried its kind. The monster lunges with predatory grace, but it's chasing a ghost who knows its next move before it happens. Zhu Tianchen dances through the dark, locked onto the energy source beating inside that twisted skeletal body. Talk about a glow-up. They trade heavy blows in the shadows. Each time those razor-sharp claws whistle through the air, he pivots to land a punch squarely on the mark. He is testing his limits, seeing how far a human can go when the odds are effectively bottomless. Then his gear gives up. The metal screams under the strain before clattering uselessly against the ground, failing him right when things get real. He's going to need a much better upgrade for this next stage. With the blade gone, he stops holding back and kicks his secret power into gear. He feels raw energy flowing into his veins, turning his arm into a glowing red wrecking ball. It is time to see what this body can really handle. He drives that charged fist forward in a blur, sending the beast careening through the air like a discarded toy. Apparently, laws of physics take a smoke break once he starts swinging. Without skipping a beat, he charges in to grab a lethal limb and snaps the bone right at the joint. Watching the creature realize it just lost its favorite toy is the highlight of the day. The creature lets out a guttural roar as its world unravels under his pressure. It is finally dawning on the beast that it made a massive mistake hunting this guy. After 10 years of practice, he's not even trying anymore. Now that it is unarmed, the beast is just a glorified punching bag. He doesn't even break a sweat, weaving around wild, failing strikes like he's out for a casual Sunday stroll. He winds up for one final explosive strike that connects with bone-shattering force. The fight ends in a single, brutal collision. He pulls back, breathing heavy from the effort of turning an apex predator into a puddle. He reaches into the remains to pluck out that shimmering, valuable core. This pulsating prize is the only reason he took this job in the first place. Meanwhile, his buddies are yelling nearby, completely missing the show. The rest of the squad catches up, eyes wide with total disbelief at the carnage. Li Wuye walks up, desperately trying to process how the guy they were supposedly protecting just dismantled a monster solo. The team leader pulls him aside, eyes narrow and suspicious, clearly hunting for the truth about his secret strength. He just shrugs it off. By the look on the boss's face, the questioning has barely even started. But before Zhu Tianchen can walk away, the curiosity of the desperate proves far more dangerous. The survivors are practically tripping over each other, desperate to understand how someone could be this capable in a world where everyone else is dying. They fixate on the strange, swirling ink patterns etched into his arm, and with a weary shrug, Zhu Tianchen rolls up his sleeve to show them that he's carrying the same curse as the rest of them. Tough crowd. Gao Fei watches with the kind of awe usually reserved for a god, practically drooling over how much of the guy's body is covered in those glowing marks. He's already decided this newcomer is legendary, casually mentioning that their own leader is a beast who handles entire swarms of the walking dead without breaking a sweat, all on his own. Luo Zio Zhu chimes in to sweeten the deal, describing how their boss absolutely obliterated 3 high-level monsters last month with nothing but his bare hands. She gestures toward a specific triangular mark on his chest, unaware that she's basically reading off our guy's resume while he stands right there. Talk about awkward. The realization hits him like a freight train, and he has to swallow the urge to laugh out loud as he hears them drop the name Hu Feng. He knows that moniker better than anyone, mostly because it's the alias he chose for himself, and for a second, he just stands there trying not to lose his cool while these strangers fanboy over his own myth. They're treating the mysterious Fist Emperor like a legendary level 5 god among men, completely oblivious that the fellow just agreed to walk back to their base with them. He's decided to play along, mostly because watching them talk about him in the third person is the best entertainment he's had since the world went to hell. Night settles over the service station like a heavy blanket, and the group is already dreaming of a sparring match against the boss they've built up in their heads. Suddenly, the silence is shredded by a frantic radio crackle, and the mood shifts from cozy campfire vibes to absolute panic in a heartbeat. She nearly drops the radio, her face turning sheet white as she realizes the people pulling up to the station are the thugs from the Zhao family. Outside, headlights cut through the gloom like knives, announcing that their peaceful night just turned into an ambush before anyone could even finish their dinner. Longhua City has always been a dumpster fire of competing warlords, but the areas outside the city center were supposed to be the quiet corner where everyone played nice. That truce is officially over, and with the shadow of these rival gangs looming, it's clear that the local power structure is about to get a very forceful rearrangement. The young brawler steps right into the line of fire, puffing out his chest and trying to bank on his reputation to scare off the incoming muscle. He drops the name Brother Wu Yi like it's a holy commandment, genuinely believing he can talk his way out of an execution attempt. Bless his heart. The leader of the opposition, Li Wuyi, doesn't look even remotely impressed by the display of bravado. He stares down his opponent, his voice hitting a sharp, demanding tone that leaves zero room for negotiation. He wants the station, and he's clearly not leaving until he gets what he came for. The newcomer pulls off his sunglasses, his smirk practically screaming that he doesn't mind painting the walls with his opposition, and he coldly promises to execute the guy talking back to him. The shock that washes over his opponent's face isn't just fear, it's instant, bone-deep recognition of a name that brings a whole new level of trouble. The blonde instigator stands there like he owns the entire apocalypse, scoffing at the mere mention of the legendary boss the others worship. To him, the local hero is just a small-time annoyance he's planning to pave over on his way to seizing total control of the territory. The tension breaks in the weirdest way possible, as leader Lin sprints into the middle of the standoff and practically leaps into the arms of the villain. He's calling him Brother Pai Li and sounding like a worried relative at a family reunion, which is definitely not the energy you want when everyone is holding weapons. The brute sighs and waves his men down, making it clear he's only pausing the slaughter because of a sentimental connection to the kid who just hugged him. But his mercy has a shelf life, and he points a finger directly at our protagonist, promising that a personal debt is about to be settled in blood. And that's where Chapter 105 leaves us. He's been waiting for a showdown like this since he woke up in the past, and now that the local heavyweight is literally knocking on his door, things are finally hitting a breaking point. Next time, find out if Li Wuyi survives his own arrogance or if the Fist Emperor turns him into a cautionary tale.